the Great Sphinx of Giza. You know, we've all seen the pictures. It's this silent guardian out there in the sand. But what if that familiar face is just a mask? What if it's hiding a story that is way older and way stranger than anything we've ever been told? The clues, it turns out, are written right there in the stone.
And we're just going to dive right into the heart of the mystery that really haunts this incredible monument. Because there's a good chance that beneath this stone guardian, something is buried. Something that could literally rewrite everything we think we know about the ancient world. First off, you gotta wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing. The Sphinx is over 72 meters long. That's almost the entire length of an American football field. We're not just talking about a statue here. This is arguably the first true colossus in human history. And here's what's just mind-blowing about the engineering. The Sphinx wasn't built up from blocks, like the pyramids were. No, the builders quarried down. They carved this entire thing out of one single continuous piece of living rock. It's an absolutely incredible feat. Okay, now things start to get really interesting when you look at the geology. The limestone of the head, it's much harder, from a different layer of rock than the super soft stone that makes up the body. And that little fact, that one small geological detail, well, that's the key to a massive, massive controversy. So, what is the official story? I mean, for over 100 years now, there's been a pretty solid consensus about who carved the Sphinx, and more importantly, when. Mainstream Egyptology is very clear on this. The face of the Sphinx is believed to be the face of Pharaoh Khafre, a ruler from the 4th dynasty. And the logic kind of makes sense, right? The Sphinx, its temples, his pyramid right next door. The idea is that this was all one enormous construction project. So, this timeline places its creation firmly around 2500 BCE. The official story is neat and tidy. The rock they dug out to create the ditch for the Sphinx's body was then used to build the nearby temples. See, one single unified project by one pharaoh. And then for almost 2,000 years after that, it was buried in sand, only to be dug out and worshipped by much later kings. And look, this conclusion is built on decades of solid archaeological work. As this quote lays out, the evidence from the quarry, the architecture, the whole layout of the Giza Plateau, it all seems to point directly to Khafre as the builder. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. Then, in the early 1990s, a geologist named Dr. Robert Schoch was invited to study the Sphinx. Now, he wasn't looking at art or history. He was just looking at the rock itself. And what he saw, it set off an absolute academic firestorm. Okay, look closely at this image. This is the wall of the ditch around the Sphinx. You see those deep vertical fissures running from top to bottom? Schoch and other geologists, they immediately recognized that pattern. It wasn't wind erosion. It was weathering caused by a massive amount of running water. We're talking heavy rainfall, pouring over that edge for a very, very long time. And this is the crucial point. Wind erosion, which you see all over the other monuments at Giza from the same period, it creates these horizontal, sharp-edged cuts. But what we see on the Sphinx and its enclosure walls are these deep, rounded, vertical channels. It's a completely different geological signature, and it points to a time when the climate in Egypt was drastically different, a time when it rained a lot. Now, here's the problem. That rainy period, the African humid period, it ended thousands of years before Khafre was even born. So based on this geological evidence, Dr. Schoch proposed a radical new date for the original carving of the Sphinx's body, 5000 BCE, or maybe even earlier. That would make it thousands of years older than ancient Egypt itself. Okay, so the story gets even stranger from here, because the questions aren't just about how old the Sphinx is, but also about what might be hidden right underneath it. So as part of that same 1990s investigation, geophysicists used sound waves to look under the monument. This map shows what they found. Now, they discovered a few odd spots, but one in particular stood out. A perfectly rectangular low-velocity zone right beneath the front paws. They called it Anomaly A. So what does low-velocity anomaly even mean? Well, in seismic terms, it means the sound waves traveled more slowly through that spot, which is a strong suggestion that there's a cavity, maybe a chamber. The data pointed to a man-made void, something about 12 by 9 meters in size, buried just 5 meters below the surface. This photo shows you that area today. The red box highlights about where that anomaly is right under the pause. And you see that little cap that the arrow is pointing to? That's from a drilling that was done in 2009. But this is where it gets really weird. So despite multiple teams drilling holes all around the Sphinx for years to look for other chambers or just check the water table, the evidence shows that nobody has ever drilled directly into the coordinates of this one very specific rectangular anomaly that they found back in the 90s. The one spot that science suggests is a man-made chamber remains officially unexplored. Why? So if the Sphinx is much older, and if there might be something hidden beneath it, does the statue itself hold any other clues? Well, the answer seems to be yes. It looks like it may have been heavily modified over the thousands of years.
Let's look at the clues written on the statue itself. First off, the head. It's famously, almost comically, out of proportion with the massive body. Many experts believe this means it was recarved from a much larger original head. Second, we know for a fact that the iconic beard was just added centuries later. It wasn't part of the original design. Now, these clues all point to one incredible possibility, that the original monument was a pure lion, and a later pharaoh, maybe Khafre, had the head recarved into his own face. This isn't just an artistic choice. We could be looking at historical revisionism on a monumental scale.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started, standing in front of a monument that guards far more questions than it does answers. The evidence we've looked at leaves us with 3 profound and so far unanswered riddles.
First, the riddle of its age. If the geologists are right, then the Sphinx is a relic from a lost chapter of human history, carved by a civilization that existed thousands of years before the first pharaohs.
Second, the riddle of its builder. If Khafre didn't originally carve it, then who did? Who, back in what we currently call the Stone Age, had the organization, the tools, and the just sheer audacity to create something on this scale? And finally, the riddle of the chamber. What is waiting in that silent, rectangular space beneath the Sphinx? Is it a burial chamber? Could it be the legendary Hall of Records some people have talked about? Or is it all just a big fuss over a natural crack in the rock? Until someone is allowed to actually look, we just don't know. So, the crucial point we're left with is this. The Great Sphinx is still a riddle in stone. It challenges our timeline of civilization and quietly holds secrets that we have yet to uncover. Which brings me to our final question for you. If they opened that chamber tomorrow, what do you believe they would find